Hey there, this is Lynn. I just finished filming my first video about my venture into classic literature where I read the first of this volume by Jane Austen. There's six of her books in here, so I read the first one, which is Sense and Sensibility. And so I did a video on just my journey into this book, reading Sense and Sensibility, and the things that I took away from it. So the moment I finished reading this book, I went and watched the movie. I like reading books before I see the movie, so I can form in my head the characters and I can see all the detail of the story. And when I finished this book, I thought, oh my goodness, how are they going to put all of this into a 2 hour movie? What are they going to have to cut out of it? And again, like I mentioned in my last video, the whole time I was reading this book, because I knew that they had made a movie and I knew some of the characters, the actors, I was imagining Kate Winslet playing Eleanor because of her very proper role in the Titanic, where she was a very, very proper, cultured English lady, young lady. And to me, she fit the character of Eleanor. So I was very surprised to learn that she played the character of Marianne in the movie. And man, did she do a good job. I mean, she's a really great actress. And I realized that the movie was almost 30 years ago, which is crazy. It's 2024 now. The movie came out in 1995. So she looked to be about the age that Marianne would have been in the book, which was age 17. So I knew obviously that this was going to be a very abridged version of the story. So I was so surprised to see Emma Thompson as Eleanor. And she's a really great actress. And anything I say that I didn't like has nothing to do with the actors that played in this movie. It was probably more writing and casting. But I was kind of disappointed to see Emma Thompson as Eleanor. Not because I don't think she did an amazing job with the character. I just thought that she was too old to play Eleanor. Eleanor was 19 in the actual story, and Emma Thompson was probably in her 30s at the time, and she wasn't one of these like 30-some-year-olds that looks like she's 19, like all the Glee characters. Like, she looked like she was in her 30s. And so it just took me a little bit to get past that because of the fact that I had just read the book and I had a distinct image of a young Kate Winslet in my mind for Eleanor. But I did get past that and mostly past it. I still struggled to see her as a 19-year-old. And it didn't say in the movie that she was supposed to be 19, so if I hadn't read the book, it probably wouldn't have been a big deal at all. It's like, okay, she's an older sister, and it would have been kind of a little weird that she's got a sister who in the movie they said she's 12, almost 13. And I would have thought, okay, well, that's really interesting because to me she looks like she's in her 30s. And it looks like Margaret could be her daughter. Anyways, struggled a little bit with that. I figured, couldn't they have found an actress who was closer in age or at least looked closer in age? So, but with that said, it is what it is. And she played the role very well. I feel like she captured the personality of Eleanor, the reserved nature of Eleanor, the looks, the mothering that she did over Marianne. I feel like she did a really good job. I mean, this was the role that she was given. So you can't look 19, at least play the character the way it's supposed to be played. And I really believe she did. And Kate Winslet did an amazing job playing Marianne. She was so good. Let's see, they had Harriet Walter, and I've got the IMDb here. Harriet Walter played Fanny Dashwood. She did great because Fanny Dashwood is a very unlikable character. She did a really good job of playing her in the movie. And the same conversation that I mentioned in my previous video where she's talking her husband down from his 2,000 a month or 2,000 pound a month income that he was going to provide for the girls and their mother. She talked him down from that. They portrayed that scene perfectly. It was exactly the way I saw it in my head in the book. So I was really pleased that that's like, wow, okay, they had that down. Writers did a good job of that too. Let's see. And of course, Hugh Grant. Who doesn't like Hugh Grant? He's such a cutie pie. At least back then he was. Played Edward Ferrars. To me in the book, Edward was a little more awkward than Hugh Grant's character. Hugh Grant's character was more outgoing than I was anticipating for Edward Ferrars. He seemed to be more openly interested in Eleanor and make it pretty obvious that he was openly interested in Eleanor. But he didn't express any sentiments towards her of affection. So I think he did a pretty good job. I just was a little bit surprised with how outgoing he was, like him playing fencing and playing with Margaret in the yard. And that was a side of Edward that I don't think Jane Austen necessarily covered in the book. If she did, I missed it. So if you're watching this, let me know. Did I miss it? Or was that just kind of a little bit of artistic license that the writers of the movie took? As far as, let's see, Colonel Brandon. Alan Rickman is the actor that played Colonel Brandon. I loved him. I thought he was perfect for Colonel Brandon. He was reserved. He was understated. He wasn't overly attractive, but he wasn't underly attractive either. He was just kind of an average looking guy, and just came across as just the biggest sweetheart in the world, which was the way he was portrayed in the book. So, and obviously smitten with Marianne, which is the way he was portrayed in the book. So I thought that he did an amazing job playing Colonel Brandon. I loved his character. Greg Wise played John Willoughby, and I think he did a great job as well. I think he was really good for that character. Let's see. Imelda Staunton played Charlotte Palmer, who's Mrs. Jennings' daughter. I thought she did awesome. She was perfect as well. Mrs. Jennings was an actress named Elizabeth Spriggs. She was great for Mrs. Jennings. I guess the one thing that I didn't see from the book that I did see in the movie was Sir John Middleton being as goofy as he was. So we have Richard Hardy playing Sir John Middleton, and the movie left out Lady Middleton, which I was kind of disappointed but I guess you got to build a whole new story around her, so that would have been hard to incorporate and keep the movie shorter. So they kept Lady Middleton out of it. So it was just Sir John Middleton and Mrs. Jennings. And Sir John Middleton, I totally had a different idea of him in the book. I saw him as a very just kind of genteel, kind, generous man who loved to have people around him, loved to entertain, loved to have a house full of company. But I didn't see him as being as boisterous and goofy as Robert Hardy played the character. And it wasn't a negative thing. It was just an adjustment to how he interpreted the character. Let me see here. Who else did we have? Mrs. Dashwood was older than I expected her to be, played by Emma Jones. And in the book, I pictured her to be closer to 50, maybe even in her mid-40s potentially, because they often was talking about being 50 or in your 50s like you're at death's door. So I was expecting her to be maybe in her 40s, maybe not even mid-40s, because Eleanor, her oldest, was only 19. She could have very easily been 40, even younger if she got married young. So I did not expect Mrs. Dashwood to be older in the movie. I was able to get over that pretty quick too. But that was just a difference that I noticed between the movie and the book. Let's see. The half-brother John Dashwood, his character was fine, played by James Fleet. Let's see. Mr. Palmer, played by Hugh Laurie. I had no idea it was Hugh Laurie until I looked at IMDb. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I just see him as Dr. House. And I didn't recognize him. Like, I was shocked. Like, really? Now I'm going to have to go back and look at it. I thought he did a great job of playing Mr. Palmer. Man, and of course, he played House, right? So he plays a cranky doctor who's always inappropriate. He's rude as a doctor. So it's like, of course he's going to play Mr. Palmer, which I think that this movie came out before he played House, but I may be wrong. Very good. He played a great role. And he even seemed at the end to have a nice side, which was really nice. Couple other things. Let's see. Robert Ferrars was brought in with more significance in the movie than he was in the book. In the book, I felt like he was barely mentioned, and then all of a sudden at the end, he disrupts everything. And so it was really interesting to see them bring him a little bit more earlier in the movie, and seemed like it was a little bit of foreshadowing to what was going to come with his character in Lucy. He was played by Richard Lumsden, which I'm not familiar with. Miss Gray, who was engaged to Willoughby, I found her. She was played by a woman named Lone Matson. I thought she was way prettier. The actress was way prettier than was described in the book. It was kind of like in the book, it was described as he was marrying for money. She was not, I think they call it not as handsome as Eleanor. But in the movie, the actress was very pretty. So that was a little surprising. I wasn't expecting her to be as pretty. Let's see if there's any character here that jumps out at me. I think that's it. Margaret, the little girl that played Margaret, was great. Yeah. So as far as characters go, there were some differences, and but overall, they all did a really great job. I think I was okay with the way the story progressed because it had to progress a lot faster than it progressed in the book. Like in the movie, the time period between the girls going to London with Mrs. Jennings and Marianne being deathly ill seemed like it was just a matter of a week or two. It was very short, whereas it was months in the book. So a lot was taken out. But I think that considering that it was kind of an abbreviated time period, I think they did a decent job with showing Marianne being very, like, her health not being that great, because she was always like, her eyes were always red, like she'd been crying, and she was just not, she lost her cheerfulness. She was still participating in life. In the movie, it seemed like in the book she was much more withdrawn than she was in the movie. But the scene where she goes out walking in the rain, kind of really showed what was going on in her head. And I feel as though the scenes where she was deathly ill really captured how sick she was. So that part was good. I think the thing that disappointed me the most about the movie, and again, this is spoiler alert, I'm assuming you've already watched the movie. So if you have not watched the movie, then you may not want to listen to this part. But if you've read the book and have not watched the movie, I was kind of disappointed that they left out the scene where John Willoughby shows up again after he gets married, and Eleanor is at her sister's bedside, not knowing if she's going to live. And Colonel Brandon goes to get her mother, and she's expecting the carriage to come with her mother at a specific time in the evening, and it's a couple hours early, and she hears a carriage and she's excited, thinking, oh my goodness, they're early. She runs down expecting to find her mother at the door because she wants to tell her the moment she sees her that Marianne is going to live, because Marianne took a turn for the better in the interim. And she opens the door, and there's John Willoughby. And there's this scene where she has this conversation with John Willoughby, and she goes into it with such disdain for Willoughby because of what he did to Marianne. And he explains his side of the story and owns up to what he did, and explains basically the regret, the remorse. He knows, acknowledges what he did wrong and how poorly he treated her. And Eleanor basically forgives him. And he asks Eleanor to please convey his story to Marianne, because Marianne, part of her distress was her doubting whether he ever loved her. That is such a key part of her character in the story, and why she's in such absolute poor health, because she was in absolute despair, because she was starting to doubt everything she thought that she knew about her relationship with Willoughby. And from a woman's perspective, and I'm sure for a man as well, if you think you know somebody and you think that like they have expressed that they love you, and you think you're going to marry that person, and all of a sudden they act like, she gets this letter acting like there was never anything, I'm sorry if I ever gave you that impression, but there was never anything going on. And it makes you as a person go, oh my gosh, like, did I imagine all this? Can I ever trust anybody ever again? Can I ever trust my own emotions? Like, that's what I would be thinking. And so that was such a key emotional component to the story, and how him coming and sharing that so that Eleanor could share it with Marianne when she recovered took a burden off of Marianne. It released her from that burden of doubting her perception of what their relationship was. And because he assured Eleanor that yes, he did love her. Yes, that he wanted to marry her, and that yes, all of the feelings and everything going on was real. And so when Eleanor was able to confirm that to Marianne, it really took a huge burden off of her, because Marianne had forgiven Willoughby, but the only thing that was still weighing on her was the idea that he had such poor integrity, and here she was taken in by someone with such poor integrity. She needed the comfort that no, he really was genuine in what his feelings towards her, and he really, really did love her. And so that was a huge component in my eyes of the story. And as far as the character, their emotional changes, the emotional release that it gave Marianne, the ability that it gave her to move on and to be happy again. I was really disappointed that they didn't include that scene, at least an abridged version of that scene. I honestly think they could have probably done it in 5 minutes. And instead, they completely skipped it, and they just showed him at the very end of the movie on his horse on a hill, watching her come out of the church from getting married, and then riding away. It's like, that was a big letdown. Because, man, that was such a huge emotion for me in the story. Like, I felt for Marianne. I felt for Eleanor. And to leave that out, yeah, big disappointment. So I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but that's how I feel. So when I weigh the movie versus the book is so much better. 100%. Actors in the movie were very good. Fantastic. I did enjoy them. I enjoyed the setting. I feel like they captured the setting of the story really well. I felt that we were there in the time period and in the setting. So that was really great about the movie. But the storyline, I feel as though it really missed out on an opportunity to capture that last really pivotal part of the story. So, anyways, if anyone is watching this, again, this is only my second video regarding my venture into classic literature. So I don't know if anyone's going to watch this or not, but if you do, let me know what you think. I'm really curious. And I will be reading, as I mentioned in my last video, I am reading The Prisoner of Zenda by Anthony Hope, and I'm on chapter 5, I think. Enjoying it so far. So I will, if anyone is interested, I will come back and I will do a video about what I think about this book. And I'm definitely open for suggestions on other books to read because I am such a novice when it comes to classic literature. I'm just a nurse, an ex-accountant. And yeah, this is all new for me. So keeping my Webster's Dictionary open on my phone because got to look up lots of words. But I guess that's going to be par for the course when it comes to reading these books. Okay, that's it for this video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.